I thought I was fine until under hypnosis, I said a name I never dared to love publicly. "Say the first name that comes to mind," Dr. Patel said softly. And out it came unfiltered, trembling, real. "Ethan." The room fell silent. It should have been nothing. Just a name. Just another session in a long list of Tuesday afternoons I'd spent trying to fix what was supposedly broken in me. But that name Ethan carried the weight of 15 years of denial, guilt, and buried yearning. I blinked at the ceiling, still dazed from the light hypnosis. Dr. Patel was quiet, her pen hovering midair. She didn't press me. She never did. That was the worst part. "Do you remember what you just said?" she finally asked. I nodded slowly. My throat burned. "Yeah." "Do you know who Ethan is?" My chest tightened. "I do." But I didn't want to say more. Because saying it meant dragging out a ghost I'd locked away. It meant acknowledging that everything I'd spent years pretending never happened did. 15 years earlier, in a small town outside Portland, Oregon, Ethan and I had been inseparable. We were those boys who always shared a desk, whose parents joked we'd grow up and marry sisters. But Ethan didn't make me think about sisters. He made me think about him. We were 16 when it happened. The summer before junior year. We were at his dad's lake cabin, supposed to be studying for the SATs. He fell asleep beside me on the couch, shirtless, his lips slightly parted. I remember staring at him like a coward, trying not to reach out and touch him. And then, just once, I did. I brushed a strand of hair off his forehead, and he stirred. His eyes fluttered open and he kissed me. Just like that. Like it was nothing new. Like he'd been waiting for me to be brave enough. We didn't talk about it the next day. Not for a week. Then he started dating some girl named Haley, and I told myself it didn't mean anything. That kiss was a fluke. A heat-of-the-moment thing. Teenage confusion. Except it wasn't. "I haven't thought about Ethan in years," I lied, my fingers twitching. Dr. Patel said nothing, just watched me with that quiet, unnerving patience of hers. "I mean, I don't think about him all the time or anything," I added quickly. She tilted her head slightly. "Then why did his name surface under hypnosis?" I laughed. It came out bitter. "I don't know. Maybe he's just symbolic. Of something." "Of what?" "Regret," I whispered. "The thing about regret is, it doesn't knock. It creeps." I went on to live a perfectly functional adult life. A job in tech. A nice apartment in Seattle. A string of almost relationships that all ended for vague reasons, different goals, timing, emotional unavailability. I convinced myself I just wasn't meant for love. The truth was more pathetic. I was still stuck at 17, replaying one kiss on a lake cabin couch. I hadn't seen Ethan since graduation. I hadn't even stalked him online. I told myself I didn't need closure, I was fine. Happy, even. Until I wasn't. The hypnosis wasn't my idea. My ex, Jordan, suggested it after I kept waking up in cold sweats, heart racing, no memory of the nightmares. "Something's clearly unresolved," he said, gently. "You keep saying you're fine, but your sleep says otherwise." Jordan was the kind of guy who read trauma books on weekends and thought meditation could solve grief. We lasted 8 months. He left when I flinched during sex one too many times. That was a year ago. I started seeing Dr. Patel 6 weeks later. "What did Ethan mean to you?" she asked me the following session. The question felt like someone had walked into a locked room in my chest without knocking. I paused. He was everything I didn't know I wanted. Dr. Patel scribbled something. "We were just kids," I added quickly. "It was probably all in my head." "Do you believe that?" "No," I admitted. I just want to. She set her notepad down. Maybe it's time you found out what really happened. That idea haunted me. The idea of seeing him again. Of opening that door. I wasn't sure I had the stomach for it. But I found him anyway. 3 nights later, I got drunk and searched Facebook. There he was, Ethan Marks, 32 years old, living in Denver, Colorado. No spouse listed. A few pictures of him hiking. A Labrador named Milo. No rainbow flags, no obvious signs. My hands trembled on the keyboard. I didn't message him. I just stared at the photos like a stalker. His face was the same, just older. Wiser. Softer, maybe. That night, I dreamt of the lake house again. But this time, I said his name out loud. In the dream. And in real life, apparently I woke up mid-whisper, Ethan. 2 days later, I got a friend request. From him. I stared at it for what felt like an hour. My mouth went dry. Did Facebook alert him that I viewed his profile? Is that a thing? I almost deleted the app. Instead, I accepted. 5 minutes later, he messaged. Ethan. Hey. Wow. It's been what, 15 years? Me. Yeah. Long time. Ethan. Didn't think I'd see your name pop up. How've you been? Me. Alive. He sent a laughing emoji. Then. You always were dramatic. I smiled. For the first time in months, it didn't feel forced. We messaged for hours that night. Small talk, mostly. Job stuff. Family. The usual dance of 2 people tiptoeing around a crater of shared history. Then he asked. Do you ever think about that summer? My breath caught. I typed. Sometimes. He replied. Me too. And just like that, the crater was back. Wide open. Are you going to see him? Dr. Patel asked. I hadn't told her yet. But somehow, she knew. I don't know, I said. Would that be insane? Would it be healing? That word scared me. Because healing meant digging. And I wasn't sure I could survive another excavation of my own heart. A week later, I boarded a flight to Denver. He offered to pick me up at the airport, but I said no. I wanted time to rehearse. To breathe. To unravel. We agreed to meet at a cafe near his place. Neutral territory. Daylight hours. No pressure. But when I walked in and saw him sitting at a corner table, hair slightly longer, that same crooked smile, I nearly turned and ran. He stood. Hey. Hey, I managed. My voice cracked. You look good, he said. I laughed. Liar. He shrugged. I always liked liars. I didn't know what that meant. But I let it hang. We sat. We ordered coffee. We talked like adults. Like nothing had happened. But something had. And somewhere between sips, I looked at him and realized, I had never stopped loving him. Ethan stirred his coffee, watching the cream swirl like smoke in a dream. You ever think about how different things could have been? I didn't look at him right away. My throat tightened. Yeah, I said. All the time. He gave me a quiet smile, tired but kind. You just vanished after graduation. I always wondered why. I thought you didn't want to talk about it, I said. You kissed me, then started dating Haley like it never happened. He flinched, just barely. I know. There was a pause. An ache in it. I was scared, he said at last. More than scared. I was fucking terrified. I looked up. Of me? Of me. He chuckled, hollow. You don't grow up in a house like mine and come out of it knowing how to love a boy. I nodded. Same. For a minute, neither of us said anything. The city moved outside the window, cars honking, people rushing by, lives in motion. Meanwhile, we sat still, stuck in a moment we'd frozen 15 years ago. I used to think about that kiss like it was a dream, I said quietly. Like maybe I made it up. You didn't. I know that now. He studied me. So why now? Why'd you reach out? I didn't, I said. You did. He smirked. Because I saw your name in my notifications and my heart damn near stopped. I laughed. Guess we're both still cowards. Maybe, he said, but at least we're here. He reached across the table, slowly. His hand hovered above mine, not touching, just asking. And I let him. We didn't go back to his place. That would have been too much, too fast. Instead, we wandered. Walked through the park. Talked about old classmates, about the shitty jobs we'd had, the cities we'd lived in, the things we'd lost along the way. Somewhere in the middle of it all, I asked, are you out now? Ethan raised an eyebrow. Define out. You know what I mean. He hesitated. I'm selective. My friends know. My co-workers assume. My mom thinks I'm married to my career. And your dad? He looked away. Still thinks I'm a phase. I nodded. Yeah. Mine too. It felt oddly comforting, that shared wound. That night, we said goodbye outside my hotel. Not with a kiss. Not even with a hug. Just a look. You want to meet again? He asked. I didn't even hesitate. Yeah. I do. He smiled. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. That night I dreamt of the lake again. Only this time, we didn't stop at the kiss. We stayed there, together, wrapped in each other, unafraid. When I woke, my face was wet with tears. And I realized I wasn't dreaming about the past. I was dreaming about what could still be. The next morning, he took me to a small art gallery downtown. It was his favorite, he said, because no one ever went there and the lighting was terrible. Which means the good stuff gets overlooked, he explained. I followed him through narrow white halls, watching him more than the art. He was wearing a gray hoodie and jeans, his hair still damp from a shower. Casual. Easy. Beautiful. You ever miss it? He asked, pausing in front of a painting of two figures blurred together in motion. Miss what? Being young. Being that naive. I shrugged. Sometimes. But I also don't miss hating myself. He looked at me. You still do? I hesitated. Less. But it lingers. He reached for my hand again. This time, he didn't hesitate. And neither did I. We spent the rest of the week together. Not in some rom-com montage way. Just real. Quiet dinners. Long walks. Talking until 2 a.m. on his balcony. Sharing stories we'd never told anyone, not even ourselves. He told me about the guy he'd dated in college, the one who wanted to hold hands in public, and how he couldn't. How they broke up because of it. I told him about Jordan. About how I couldn't let someone in, not really. About how I built walls so high even I couldn't see over them. We're so fucked up, I said one night, lying side by side on his couch. He laughed. Yeah. But at least we're fucked up together now. That night, we kissed again. It wasn't like the lake. It wasn't rushed or secret or stolen. It was slow. Safe. Sad, in a way. Because it carried everything we'd missed. I cried afterward. He didn't ask why. He just held me. By the time my flight back to Seattle neared, something had shifted. I didn't want to go. He walked me to the gate, both of us quiet. "You could stay," he said. I looked at him. "Don't say that if you don't mean it." "I wouldn't," he said. "I've waited long enough." I laughed, biting back tears. "We barely scratched the surface." "Then let's keep scratching." I leaned in and kissed him once soft, short. "I'll come back," I said. "You better." Back in Seattle, everything felt dim. Muted. Like I'd been living in grayscale, and Denver had been color. I saw Dr. Patel that same week. "So," she asked. "Did you get the closure you were looking for?" I shook my head. "No." She raised an eyebrow. "I got something better." She smiled. "You opened the door." "Yeah," I said. And this time, I didn't slam it shut. Ethan and I started calling every night. Nothing dramatic. Just check-ins. Real things. Groceries, bad days at work, arguments with parents, new music, old wounds. Sometimes we flirted. Sometimes we didn't. Sometimes we sat in silence, just breathing on the line. "Do you believe in second chances?" he asked one night. "Not really," I replied. "But I believe in this one." 6 weeks later, I packed up and moved. I didn't do it all for him. I told myself I needed a change. A new job. A new city. But we both knew the truth. Sometimes the heart knows it's home before the body catches up. He met me at the airport again. Same smile. Same eyes. This time, we kissed like we meant it. This time, we didn't let go. Living together wasn't perfect. He leaves the cap off the toothpaste. I obsess over the dishwasher arrangement. We fight about dumb things. He hates confrontation. I bottle things up. We're still learning. But now, when I wake up from a bad dream, he's there. And when he shuts down after a rough call from his father, I just hold his hand until he speaks again. We don't have it all figured out. But we have each other. Sometimes, when I'm lying in bed and he's asleep beside me, I think back to that day in Dr. Patel's office. To the moment my mouth said a name my brain had buried for years. And I thank God it did. Because that name Ethan wasn't just someone I loved. He was the truth I had spent my whole life running from. And now? Now he's the truth I get to run toward. Every damn day. It's strange how quickly life reshapes itself around the truths we finally stop hiding. 3 months into living with Ethan, I started waking up without dread. That doesn't sound like much, but for someone who spent years negotiating anxiety like a landlord, it was a damn miracle. We found rhythm in the mundane. I cooked. He forgot laundry in the dryer. We argued over dumb shows and shared Spotify playlists like teenagers. But underneath it all was this silent reverencia, mutual gratitude that we'd somehow made it here. "Do you realize," he said one night as we folded blankets after a movie, "that we're finally giving ourselves what we were too scared to want?" I looked at him. "It only took us 15 years. He laughed. "Worth it." I reached for his hand. God, I wish I could go back and tell our younger selves not to be so afraid. Ethan shook his head. I wouldn't. The fear made this real. It made us. And maybe he was right. Maybe if we'd loved each other back then, we would have burned too bright and vanished. Maybe we needed the ache to grow into men who could carry love with care. Still, I sometimes caught myself looking at him like I was mourning a ghost, like the boy I once knew had finally been resurrected, only to remind me of everything we'd lost. And then he'd do something small, like sing in the shower or tuck a blanket around me when I nodded off on the couch, and I'd remember. We didn't lose it. We paused it. And now we were pressing play again. Then came the letter. It arrived on a Thursday. I was the one who pulled it from the mailbox, thinking it was junk. No return address, just my name in looping cursive. I almost threw it out. But when I opened it, my hands went cold. It was from Haley. Yes, that Haley. Hi, the letter began. This is probably the last thing you expected. But I saw your name in a group photo on Ethan's Instagram. And suddenly, everything made sense. My throat closed. I'm not reaching out to start drama, she wrote. I need to say something I should have said years ago. Ethan came into the room, whistling, tossing his keys on the table. Hey. What's up? I folded the letter quickly, face pale. Nothing, I lied. Just mail. He gave me a look but didn't press. That night, I read the letter alone in the bathroom. Haley's words were more thoughtful than I expected. She talked about how confused Ethan had been back then. How he'd pull away sometimes, even when things were fine. How he'd stare off at nothing when he thought she wasn't looking. He wasn't in love with me, she wrote. Not really. I think part of him wanted to be. I don't blame him for trying. Then came the part that stung. I always wondered if it was you. She ended it with kindness. I'm happy he's found you again. I truly am. I folded the letter with shaking hands. I didn't tell Ethan about it. Not that night. Not the next. Something inside me resisted. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe shame. Maybe fear that if we spoke Haley's name aloud, we'd both fall back into the past. But the distance between us started to widen. Not in arguments or missed dinners, no. In the subtle, silent moments. The way I hesitated before saying I love you. The way he looked at me too long when I wasn't speaking. Like he could feel the unsaid words under my skin. One night, over Chinese takeout, he finally said it. You've been off. I put down my chopsticks. I'm just tired. No. It's more than that. He leaned forward. Is this about us? My heart pounded. No. He waited. Silent. I sighed. It's about the past. About the things we never said. He blinked slowly. Is this about Haley? I froze. I saw the letter, he added. I was the one who took it out of the mailbox before you did. Then I put it back in. I stared at him. Why? Because I wanted to see if you'd tell me. The air thickened. I didn't know how, I admitted. I didn't send her that photo. She must have seen it on a mutual friend's page. I know, I said. Ethan's voice was gentle, but firm. You don't have to protect me from her. Or from who I was. I looked down. I wasn't trying to hide it. I just. You were scared again, he finished. I nodded. He reached across the table, his thumb brushing the back of my hand. We can't keep doing this tiptoeing around every shadow. I know. If we're really going to build something real, we need to stop treating the past like a ghost. I met his eyes. Okay. He smiled, soft and tired. Okay. After that, things deepened. I don't mean in the Hollywood, music-swelling kind of way. I mean in the quiet conversations at 1 a.m., peeling back trauma like old paint kind of way. I told him about my father the first time he caught me crying over a boy's name in my diary. The silence that followed. The years of unspoken rules. He told me about the night he came out to his mom, how she hugged him and then asked if he was sure, like love was a diagnosis. We shared the names of people we'd pretended to love. The ones we ghosted. The ones who ghosted us. And slowly, we began replacing shame with understanding. Then came Pride Month. Ethan had never gone to a march before. Too many people, he always said. Too much noise. But that year, he wanted to. He bought us matching shirts black with the words, "Still Here," in rainbow letters. We stood in a sea of color, hands clasped, surrounded by strangers who felt like family. At one point, a teenager walked past us, maybe 16, holding a sign that read, "Loving him saved me." Ethan squeezed my hand. And just like that, I started crying. Not because I was sad. Not because I was broken. Because I was finally, deeply, profoundly seen. That night, we lay in bed, exhausted from the heat and noise, but lit from within. "You know what's crazy?" I whispered. "I used to think I was incapable of love." Ethan brushed his fingers through my hair. "And now? Now I think I was just waiting for a version of it that didn't hurt." He kissed my temple. "We're getting there." "Yeah," I said, voice cracking. "We are." But life doesn't stay soft forever. A month later, Ethan's father had a stroke. He flew back to Oregon immediately. I offered to go with him. He said no. "It's family," he explained. "It's complicated." I understood. But being a part Aga in it hurt more than I expected. I kept reaching for his absence like a phantom limb. We talked every night, but his voice grew distant. His father had survived, but barely. And the hospital room became a vortex of tension, unspoken homophobia, medical stress, guilt soaked in generational silence. "I feel like I'm 16 again," he admitted one night. "Invisible in my own house." "Come back," I said. "I can't. Not yet." So I waited. And hoped the past wouldn't steal him again. He returned 2 weeks later. Quiet. Different. I met him at the airport. He didn't smile. "I'm sorry," he whispered into my hair. "For what?" "For everything I couldn't say to him." I pulled him into me. "You don't owe him your truth if it costs you your peace." "But I wanted to tell him about you," he said. "I wanted him to know I was loved." My heart broke a little. "Maybe someday," I said. "Maybe not. But I know. That's enough for now." That night, we didn't make love. We just held each other. Tighter than ever. As if the world might try, once more, to rip us apart. And we were daring it to try. Time doesn't heal everything. But it does offer clarity. And sometimes, that's enough. 6 months after Ethan returned from Oregon, his father passed away. He didn't cry at the funeral. Not during the eulogy, not even when they lowered the casket into the ground. He just stood still, jaw clenched, staring straight ahead. But that night, back in our apartment, he broke down in the hallway. I held him until his body stopped shaking. "He never saw me," he whispered. "Never really." "He didn't deserve to," I replied, pressing my forehead to his. "But I do. I do see you." And in that moment, I felt the quiet truth that had taken years to settle in me. We cannot wait for someone else to validate our existence. We have to live anyway. We have to love anyway. In the weeks that followed, Ethan began to change. Not in the way people change when they lose a parent, exactly. More like someone who had finally stopped asking for permission to be himself. He cut ties with the extended family who only showed up to grieve but never called when he was alive. He quit the job he'd hated for years. He took time. For himself. For us. And then one morning, over burnt toast and lukewarm coffee, he said it. "Let's go back." I looked up. "Back where?" He gave me a knowing smile. "To the lake." It took us 2 weeks to plan the trip. We rented a cabin near the same lake where we'd first kissed, though the original one was long gone, sold to some tech millionaire who'd built a monstrosity in its place. But it didn't matter. The water was still the same. The trees still leaned over the edges like they were trying to listen. And the air still carried that whisper of summer secrets. We spent the first night in silence. Not tense, just quiet. Like the place had its own gravity, its own language, and we were remembering how to speak it. On the second night, we built a fire. And that's when Ethan asked me something I never expected. "Do you forgive me?" I blinked. For what? For not choosing you. For choosing fear. I took a deep breath. The fire cracked beside us. "I used to hate you for it," I said honestly. Not in a loud way. Just in the quiet corners of my memory. He nodded. Same. But now. I looked at him. Now I see it was never about choosing me or not. It was about surviving. And we both did what we had to do. He stared at the flames. Still, I should have fought harder. "You're fighting now," I whispered. "Every day." He turned to me, eyes soft. "Is it enough?" I smiled. "It's everything." Later that night, we undressed in the dark, not out of fear, but reverence. Outside, the lake was still. Inside, we moved like people rediscovering a language they thought they'd forgotten. No performance. No pretending. Just us. Real. Raw. Home. In the morning, I woke before him. I stepped outside, barefoot in the dewy grass, and watched the sun rise over the water. It struck me then how much life had been waiting for me just on the other side of fear. And how one name, one whispered syllable under hypnosis, had cracked my entire world open. Ethan joined me a few minutes later, wrapping a blanket around our shoulders. We stood there, arms around each other, wordless. Sometimes healing doesn't come with big moments. Sometimes it's in the stillness. In standing beside the one person who knew you before you knew yourself, and choosing them again. And again. And again. We got married the following spring. It was small. Backyard. String lights. No suits. My mother didn't come. Ethan's did. She cried the entire ceremony. "I wish I'd known sooner," she said afterward, hugging us both. "I wish he'd told me." "He did," I told her gently. "Just not with words." Dr. Patel sent us a card. "Sometimes the mind protects the heart until it's ready to open," she wrote. "I'm glad you listened when it did." I framed it. Put it next to our wedding photo. 3 years have passed since then. We've had our fights. We've had our silences. We've had moments where we felt like strangers sharing the same roof. But every time we found our way back. Not because it was easy. Because it mattered. Because there's something sacred about loving the person who saw you in your most broken hour and stayed. And there's something braver still about being that person. Sometimes, I still wake from dreams with his name in my mouth. But now, I say it aloud. I roll over, pull him close, and whisper, "I said your name again." And he smiles in his sleep. Like he's always known. The truth is, we never stop becoming. Never stop healing. Never stop choosing. But I've learned that love, the kind that matters, isn't the kind that saves you. It's the kind that lets you save yourself. And then stands beside you when you do. So if you're reading this, still holding secrets you're afraid to speak, still waiting for permission to feel, let this be your sign. Say the name. Open the door. Choose the life that lets you breathe. Because someday, when the dust settles, you'll look back and realize you were never broken. You were just waiting. And love, when it's real, will wait with you. The end. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.